Hi, my name is Bob, and I'm a grateful believer in Jesus. And I have been coming to CR for the last couple of years, and I'm grateful for his work in my life, particularly in the area of dealing with anger and how it's affected me and other people. And I'm grateful for victory God's been doing in that area of my life. And also know that he's been working in my life and granting me victory in relationship to food issues too. So I'm grateful for that. You ever notice you start with something and then something else shows up in your life? Anybody else? Yeah, we got stuff happening, so we have to deal with it. Every time I meet in my life on a daily basis to try to figure out where I am, I spend a little bit of time where I just do something that I'd recommend. Is one of the things that we say, will you take some time to figure out how to get your refocused or get kind of focused? And what I do is I just read a text every day, a different part of the Bible, and I use that as a part of text. I also read other books. Read a variety of things on recovery. I read some stuff on meditation. I read a variety of things just because I want to nurture that part of my life and then I want to practice it. But today was a passage, and by the way, anyone ever read the book Revelation? Man, it's like a crazy book. I mean, it's one of those like, what? It's a crazy book. Anyways, I always look for something like, God, can you help me figure out what's going on here? And it said, to him who overcomes and does my will to the end, I will give authority over the nations. Now, I don't know what you think of that, but that's a crazy verse. You know why I thought about that verse? I thought, that's what recovery is all about. That's what CR is all about. All of you don't see yourself this way right now, but if you overcome, you're the overcomer through the power of God, and you do what God wants, his will. He says, I'm going to give you something. I'm going to give you authority, and you're going to have power over nations. Now, I don't know what that even means fully, but I'm thinking, why don't we just start with Victoria? And I know that may sound kind of weird, maybe kind of teachy to you, but some of you go that's the influence of a real life connecting with another real life. You with me on that? Yeah. So I drew a little picture today, and because it's too small for you to see, I thought I would kind of demonstrate it. Tonight we're going to be talking about relapse. Relapse. So, yeah, yay, relapse. Woo! I know, relapse. Okay, we're going to jump into relapse tonight. And I want us just to kind of walk through this. And I'm not going to give you everything tonight because there's kind of an acrostic process to go through, but I'm not going to walk through all of that. I just want to start out with saying what the first part of relapse is it's an idea of saying reserve a daily quiet time or a time with God. I want you to do is this. When you're disciplined, you create space. Henry Nouwen said that. He said, disciplined people create space. So here's it. Let me try to help you with this. And some people think this is too simple in this part of, on the sense of discipline. But if you want to spend time with God, you got to create space for God. So you got to listen to God. So I read and I listen and I get quiet. And then when I read something like I did today, overcomers, doing God's will, doing something about what God, and you know what God's will is, doing good stuff, right? Love God, love yourself, love other people. I mean, how hard is this going to be? Really hard. Here's the biggest thing that's the enemy that's happening for everyone. Why do we need to stop and kind of do a little review? Because the thing that's happening in our life is a word that you may not like, but it is a word. So I'll use a biblical term, and then I'm going to use another term that just maybe help us. The biblical term is like sin, right? Here's the term that we can use. Messed up. Anyone ever messed up? So if you go messed up, it's like you hurt yourself and you hurt somebody else. And when you violate things about yourself and to others, you have to stop and think about it. So first of all, you got to stop and think, what am I doing in my life? So when you relapse, something triggers you. Something happens and you get triggered and you go back to something. So if your thing is drinking, you'll go back to wanting to drink. So if your thing is and maybe you've gone through this, where you go through a season of your life and you're pretty good with food, but then one day something happens in your life and you're under stress, and then you say, you know what my answer is in my life is, I told you last week, mine is sugar. If I just do some sugar, I'll be okay. It screws me up. It sends me down a whole bunch of other paths. So I have to keep coming back and saying that I have to be super careful. If you're dealing with something in your life and you're kind of going oh man, I just wish I could win. So then you jump in and go just this time, I'll be a gambler again and I'll make it work, right? Doesn't work, but you can give it a shot. If you're a person who, by the way, feels like you need to be important, then what you do is go like, I need to be important, so let's be busy, right? Have you ever done that? And you work so people will go, way to go, great job, great job. And anybody ever work really hard and you work overtime and then you get more money and then 2 months later you can't figure out where that money went to, or am I the only one who ever had that problem? So when you do these things, you trigger and you go back to stuff. Some people here are going like, I'm never going to get into an unhealthy relationship again. But then you get triggered, and then what you do is you literally go back to a weird, unhealthy relationship. It's like, if I can be abused and I can abuse somebody else, why not do that? That's like crazy. But that's the whole part of what we're dealing with, is that sense of that insanity in our own life, that we go back to something. So we review something, and we go back to a place. All right. So I just need to kind of do something for you here for a moment. So I want you to break away and get this. I'm going to read a passage just from the Bible. It says this from Matthew 4. Jesus was led out to the wilderness to be tempted. And for 40 days and 40 nights, he ate nothing, and he was really hungry. Then there was a tempter who came and to get food by saying to him, why don't you change these stones into a loaf of bread? And what Jesus said is, what the tempter said, and then was, this is going to prove that you're really the Son of God. And Jesus said, no. The Scripture tells us that bread won't feed men's souls. Only obedience to the every word of God is what we need. Wow. Then the tempter comes to him again, takes him to the rooftop of a temple, says, jump off. And you prove that you're going to be the Son of God. And Jesus says, no. It also says not to put the Lord your God to a foolish test. Next, the tempter comes and says, I'll take you to the high peak of our high mountain, and I'll show you all the nations of the world and all of the glory, and I'm going to give it to you, only if you'll kneel and worship me. And he says, get out of here. I'm only worshiping the Lord God. I'm only going to obey him. And then the temptation left. So when you're tempted, if you stand in the temptation, here's the weirdest part. It doesn't feel like you'll ever get through it. Here's the weirdest part. If you can learn to cultivate how to stand through the temptation. By the way, temptation is not about doing messed up stuff. Temptation is thinking about doing messed up stuff. And if you could just hang in there just for a little bit, an hour later, you might kind of go like, where did that go? It just passed by. I had this sex urge again. I had this drink urge again. I had this food urge again. And why we also have a community, because sometimes you need to call somebody and say, I'm having a problem right now. And the other person is kind of not going to fix you. They just might say, all right, do you want to just stay on the phone until it goes past? Some of you just need to know that that's the deal. It's not like you're going to answer anything. It's like, oh, yeah, let's just stay on the phone together. Just don't do whatever you thought you were going to do that was messed up. Does that make sense? And sometimes in your own life, you'll have the courage and strength to be able to figure that out yourself and deal with that. So we got to get to overcome something. So it's like overcoming, and like you've been taking steps, not like pretty high up here, right? But now if I wanted to overcome, I'm going to have to come down this ladder. Now the reason why I put this up here is because I had to come up all through a series of steps to get up here. So I had 3 steps here, and then I started 2 steps here. Have you ever climbed the ladder and then fallen off it? Anybody? I have. So the other day I was doing some painting, and I was coming down the ladder, and I got to this step. I got to this step here, and I missed this one here. Oh, no. Now, it doesn't look like a big deal, right? But when I missed it, I fell, and I hit the ground on my back first. Now, the good thing was I didn't hit my head, which was a really important part. Because I was like, as some of you know, go like, oh, another head hit, and that guy's going to be really messed up, right? So I didn't hit my head. I just, bam, hit like that, and like knocked all the air out of me. And I was laying on the ground, and I was like, I thought this was ground, but I'm telling you, I swear, whatever was underneath the moss and the grass is like a rock. I'm telling you, because I was like, boom, hit that thing. I was like, I can't breathe. I mean, that's what it felt like. That's what relapse feels like. So you go into steps. I'm doing steps. I'm doing recovery. Step 1, step 2, step 3. I'm on it. I'm good. And then what happens is you get to a place, you go like, oh, I don't know, like it's recovery. But when you come back this way, you miss the step and you fall, boom. And when you fall, here's the thing about recovery that you need to know. The cycle of recovery is like, I feel pain. I want to feel better. I'll do something that makes me feel better. Oh, I did that. I don't feel better. I feel guilty or ashamed. Boom, I got more pain. Anybody gotten through that? There's a cycle for you. Starts with pain, ends with pain. It's just like falling on the ground. I literally fell on the ground, and I thought to myself, I fell off a ladder. We are in steps, and here was the verse I got today. If you take these steps, you can flip your leg over, and I'm not going to try it, and you'll become the overcomer. You will overcome. So in my little drawing in my book today, I had a little guy, a little tiny guy on a ladder coming up to a wall, and then he's getting over that wall. And I thought, I need God's help, or I'm going to get really messed up. So I just wanted to start with that. Make sense? Yeah. Okay, I'll give you another thing on the evaluation part that's important, and we'll kind of move on from this part. So we reserve some time to check out ourselves and figure out what's going on, and then secondly, we evaluate. In evaluating, we do something called heart. So this is where you don't have to look at anybody else. Don't fall asleep, but you might want to just kind of like, don't look around at anybody else. Think about this. In your own life right now, are you hurting? Some of you go like, yeah, I am. I'm hurting. And some of you are like, no, not so much tonight. Okay. Here's the second word. Exhausted. Yeah, man. So exhausted. And somebody else like, not so much. I'm okay. Angry. I'm going to go in a minute here. Listen, eyes up just for a second. This is what anger is about. You believe something, and you believe it strongly. It's called a value. You do not get angry until that value is crossed. And this is what you need to check out. Are you valuing something that's worthwhile? In other words, if you're angry all the time, there's got to be a lot of messed up values that you have. That's what I learned. Or what? Yeah, boundary crossing. Yeah, so there's this sense of you believe in something, and then something is crossed in that sense, and you cross it yourself, or somebody else crosses it, and so somebody kind of pushes that, and then there's like anger in the midst of that. Okay, hurting, exhausted, angry. Here's another word. Just kind of focus back again wherever you need to be. Here's the word. I just want you to kind of feel this word: resentful. Any resentment? Okay, one last one. Tense. Tense. So how are you feeling inside? Is there a tension going on in your body? All right, eyes up, look this way for a second. Sometimes I'll wake up in the middle of the night, and I know I'm having a tense moment because actually my fists are clenched, and I'm hurting. And I'm like, what am I doing? I don't know. I'm tight in my dreams. And I got to let my hands open up. And literally, I'll open up my hands, and I'll just kind of go like, oh. Have you ever get tension in the neck? Anybody here ever have tension in the neck? A little tension in the neck, tension in the back, tension in the stomach, tension in the chest, tension in the head, tension. And you just need to know that we need to do that little space. By the way, if some of that stuff is happening in your life, just be honest with your own estimation of yourself. In the book of Romans, it says this: be honest in your estimation of yourself. Hate what's wrong. Stand on the side of the good. Love one another. Be patient in trouble. Do the things in such a way that everyone can see that you're an honorable person. Good words, right? It just calls us to something that we need to do. Here's the thing that we need to do. We need to listen to our bodies, to what's going on in our minds, and our soul. In order to listen, we have to slow down. Some people have asked me, why do you do little sketches every day? I sketch every day because I have to slow down. I write little prayers out because I have to slow down. Because if I just go, yep, I read that, I did that, okay, boom, 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 I'm finished, I'm on my way, boom, I'm finished, I'm done. Okay, everything's going to be great now. Hey, what's next on the agenda? As opposed to having an experience like I did the other day where I was like, I got to slow down. And I knew I was kind of running too fast inside, and Terry and I were walking downtown, and I just said, I don't need anything really today, but I need to go to a quiet place, and I just need to sit by myself for a bit to have a coffee. And I had a coffee, 2 eggs, and a couple pieces of bacon. That was it. That was the entire breakfast, and I was just really, really quiet, and I slowed right down. But before in that process, I had just gone slow enough down actually to walk into a bookstore, and I actually asked God, like, hey, is there any books here that I need to be finding? And strangely enough, there was like, here's the summer picks for you. And I was like, okay, I don't need any more. I don't have to go to a bookstore again. They were just really clear here, the summer picks for you. And if they're not for you, they're for me. But I have a friend of mine who's going through some stuff in his life, and he was trying to figure out how do you slow down and meditate in your life, and how do you get focus in your life? How do you know what's important in your life? And by the way, the meditation about being mindful in life is to being aware of what's going on. So the evaluation is to how aware are you what's going on in your body, in your mind, in your soul? When was the last time you really slowed down and took some direction and you were in that engaged space alone? This is the things that you need to do if you relapse or before you relapse. So if you relapse, you kind of go like, ugh, and then you get in community. So scanning the room here, I would think there's probably times when all of us have probably hit the relapse button, right? And as a private thing. This is the thing that most addictions go to. Most addictions are private. People think they're private. And then they move from private to some form of public stuff. And it messes up relationships, and it messes them up. I just don't want you to fall off the ladder. And you're already doing a good job taking steps. Are we good? All right, I'm going to just say, now I got announcement time. Here goes. So if you were waiting for fireworks or something, we're done. All right, here we go. If you need a Bible, these are in the back. They're free. If you need a Bible, these are in the back, and they're free. So if you didn't know what to read, I would just say read over and over again Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. They're the first 4 books of the New Testament. They're the story of Jesus' life. Just keep reading that until you should figure out how to get on that. You should figure out more about Jesus than anybody else in this book. That's what I believe. There you go. Proverbs. Yeah, you can read Proverbs too. We read 1 proverb a day, 30 a day. That's good. These books are available to you. You go like, hey, I'd like to slow down and do like a devotional every day. There's a devotional book you can purchase. And somehow, if you can't purchase that book, we'll put you on a payment plan. Here's another thing. We have some recovery study Bibles that they're available, and we have some more here. All of these have our price tag because they've been purchased. But if you really need one of these and you really think that's important tonight, there's some available. We have more that's out there. But these, and many of you have this, it's a good tool to have, right? Okay. All right, that's the end of that sale. Groups. There are 5 things that happen in groups that we do. I'm going to read them out. Number 1, keep your sharing focused to your own thoughts and feelings. Limit your sharing to 3 to 5 minutes. 2, there is no crosstalk. Crosstalk is when 2 individuals engage in conversation and they exclude other people. Each is free to express their own feelings without an interruption. 3, we are here to support one another and not what? Fix one another. 4, anonymity and confidentiality are basic requirements. What is shared in the group? The only exception is when someone threatens or injures themselves or others. 5, offensive language really has no place. So just kind of keep the F-bombs to yourself, okay? So here we go. That's groups. That was my second announcement. We started something recently, and I just want to tell you an update from a leadership team meeting that happened on Sunday. So this past week, we did a mental health and wellness night, and we had about a little less than 20 people here, but it was based on dealing with anxiety and depression. Now, the leadership group came, and I had initially kind of launched out and said, let's do a lot of these Wednesdays, and I think it'd be really helpful. And the reality was the group came back and they said, a lot of us would like to take part of this, and we're not going to always be around for this. And we think it might be a good thing to include it in the fall once a month for maybe the next 12 months coming in the fall, that we would have one weekend, just like we do our cake and celebration weekend, we'd have one weekend where it would be specifically, and I'm thinking right now, maybe the first weekend of every month, we'll start out with something on on mental health and wellness, and we'll have some engagement so more people can take advantage of that, and you can invite a friend going like, I don't know how you're dealing with this, but this might be something that would be really helpful to you. And so this past week we had an introduction, and it was kind of an introduction which I think was well received, and we did some practicing of some things together. But for the rest of the summer, we want to do this. So we're not going to be having Wednesdays through the summer, but I want to say this to you. Community is much more important than the program. So if you follow along with this, that means that there are people that you meet here on Friday night. We're going to put all our energy in on Friday night. You're going to meet people on Friday night. Wednesdays are still available for you to say, hey, I'd like to get together with somebody. I'd like to share a meal with someone. I'd like to have a picnic with someone. I'd like to go for a walk with someone. Find somebody and just say, hey, I can connect with you and we could do this. Go listen to some free music. Engage in life. Now, it doesn't mean that we're not going to connect through the summer. We just felt like we needed to make sure that we have a healthy community as we move into the fall. We want to be engaged and strong in that way. So for those of you that's a sad point of going like, we're not going to do those, and the reality is what we are going to do them. We're going to just do them in a timely manner that will affect the entire community in the best way. And we also want you to make sure that you're healthy and that you're doing well. That means good relationships with people and feeling good about who you are in that process, okay? So I'm just following a lead from a community that I think is important to do that. So Fridays, every Friday night, we will be here doing every Friday night. And that's incredibly important. I think that's about all I wanted to say, except that we have some groups happening tonight. There'll be a group of guys meeting up here that are primarily dealing with initially substance abuse, alcohol, drugs of any kind. By the way, legal and non-legal, just stuff that happens in our life, right? And lots of other conversations that will happen there. And then we have a guys group that's happening in where we ate tonight. And the initial conversations are going to be around sexuality and dealing with the sexual dynamics of being a man and also other stuff that comes out of that in relationship to other people. Now we have two other groups that are happening. One group for women is going to be happening across the hallway. So if there's initially in your life, if there's an issue of saying, I'm feeling a little traumatized or I got some issues that I'm having to deal with that I need further help with some of the trauma that's been happening in my life, then abuse and trauma is the initial starter place, but it brings up other things. That's that room. And then across the way over, we have been given the gift of using the Pregnancy Counseling Center. We'll start in that group there dealing with, again, back to areas of chemical issues, as well as some issues too, like codependency. Anybody know what codependency means? You know, what's that? Addiction to people. Yes. So it's an interesting piece, right? So we move into that.
We deal with food and sex and all those other things.
Yeah, we got food, sex, gambling. We got a bunch of issues that we're going to work through. Here's the thing that's really important: is you start somewhere. We got about 3 minutes left here. You start somewhere and then you move somewhere else. I've been reading somebody who's gone through the 12 steps and is a strong promoter of the 12 steps more recently. And his life got totally screwed up, totally messed up. He looked back and he went like, he couldn't figure out, where did I really get messed up? And he got messed up on his secret little addiction to chocolate when he was a little boy. When nobody else was looking, he was always stashing chocolate, always eating chocolate. He could never have one chocolate cookie. He had the box of chocolate cookies. And the chocolate cookies went to sex. As soon as he realized, well, sex is what I could do. So then it was like porn and the dynamics of just being alone. And he was like, wow. Then that went to like, hey, drugs are available. Let's do drugs. Hey, alcohol's available. Let's do alcohol. Hey, gambling's available. Let's do gambling. And I've been reading this guy. He goes like, he's just talking about his life going like, the reason why he had the privilege of writing about the 12 steps, because he says it's the only thing that will ever save anyone's life. His response that came back, and the response is saying, is because he's the worst. So he's writing the book from the position like, I'm the worst guy. So you can always find yourself being compared to anybody else, but the bigger part that we need to do tonight is just to come and say, the first thing is step one is, hey, you know what? I'm messed up. Anybody want to say this with me? Hey, what? I'm messed up. That's the very first thing. And then I want to say this in my prayer for you tonight. God, help us. I ask that because we've had acknowledgement in the room, we can start making some headway to move forward. Now, I pray in the divine spirit world that anybody here tonight that would enter into any kind of potential relapse, by your grace, I pray, would you just guard us all? I pray this in your name, Jesus. Can we say it together?
Amen.
All right. Thanks for coming tonight. It's actually 8 o'clock. I'll see you in an hour, and that's good. So we're good. Don't fall off the ladder.